Well, ladies and gentlemen, some good news, I guess? Or maybe not, who knows, dependent where you sit on the aisle on multiple things, Amazon as well as Ridley Scott. But Blade Runner 2099 is going to be a limited series, and it is all 100% agreed, ready to go over at Amazon Prime. So, interesting. We actually heard about this news a fair while ago, when Ridley Scott was just discussing bits and pieces, and he just came out with the fact he was working on developing a live-action Blade Runner series. That was the first we heard of it. There had been no rumours or rumblings before that. It kind of came out of nowhere. And now we've had further developments, and it's all completely agreed upon at Amazon Prime. Ridley Scott will serve as an executive producer on the show, and the show itself is from creator Silke Louisa, I believe. That's how you say it anyway. Now, this will actually be a sequel to Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049, which I really liked. I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of people have issues with it. But for me, it was a superb piece of cinema. I genuinely, unequivocally, thoroughly enjoyed that film. And it's actually what made me excited for Denis Villeneuve's Dune. So, yeah, again, I know not everyone did, and I get that. But this will be a sequel to that, which I think actually poses some negativity on this project. Now, I'll get into the news and then I'll tell you why I think that that's negative, just so you guys can leave if you don't want to hear me ramble on. But I hope you're all well. Please do hit subscribe if you're new here, or if you generally come here and don't subscribe. It's always good to get those notifications on. And do follow me over on Twitter at MrAgeReviews. But as the Hollywood Reporter notes, the world of Blade Runner is expanding. So Amazon's Prime Video has given the green light to Blade Runner 2099, a limited series sequel to the iconic sci-fi film franchise. The series comes from Amazon Studios and Alcon Entertainment, which holds the rights to Blade Runner. So Ridley Scott, who directed the classic 1982 film, will executive produce through his Scott-free productions, while Silke Louisa will serve as showrunner. So, I think this will be interesting to see who they have on board for the pilot episode director. It'll be interesting if Ridley Scott actually comes back to direct that. Because if he does, then at least we know moving forwards it will have fantastic cinematography. Ridley Scott, whatever he is, he's still a fantastic cinematographer. So if he comes on board as the, intro director, then everyone else will subsequently follow trend, and then you're on to something which will be pretty good visually at least. The original Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott, is considered one of the greatest and most influential science fiction movies of all time. And we're excited to introduce Blade Runner 2099 to our global Prime Video customers, said Amazon Studios head of global television, Vernon Sanders. We are honoured to be able to present this continuation of the Blade Runner franchise, and are confident that by teaming up with Ridley, Alcon Entertainment, Scott-free Productions, and the remarkably talented Silke Louisa, Blade Runner 2099 will uphold the intellect, themes, and spirits of its film predecessors. They're really bigging it up. This is a very standard PR spin. Amazon announced it was developing Blade Runner 2099 in February, and its title implies it will be set 50 years after Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve. But story details are being kept quiet for now. The series will be the first live-action treatment of Blade Runner for TV. Adult Swim aired an anime, which was Blade Runner Black Lotus, that for all of its shortcomings, people actually liked that story-wise. So I didn't bother to watch it. It's not my cup of tea animation-wise. So I didn't really want to watch it. It seemed too cheap animation. We're delighted to continue our working relationship with our friends at Amazon, and we are beyond excited to continue to extend the Blade Runner canon into a new realm with the provocative storyline that Silke has created. That's from Alcon. These are the individuals who own the rights or hold the rights to Blade Runner. Audiences first discovered Ridley Scott's brilliant vision for Blade Runner 40 years ago, and since then it has become one of the most influential science fiction films of all time. Denis Villeneuve's follow-up sequel, Blade Runner 2049, then became one of the most best reviewed sequels of all time. So we recognise that we have a very high standard to meet with this next instalment. Together with Silka and our partners at Amazon and Scott Free Productions, we hope that we can live up to that standard and delight audiences with the next generation of Blade Runner. So Louisa, the individual who's showrunning this, adapted Lauren Buke's novel, The Shining Girls, for Apple TV, served as showrunner for the well-reviewed series, blah, blah, blah. And interestingly, her credits also include Halo, which is not going to be positive, but never mind. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the situation. Okay, so Blade Runner 2049 introduced a world where replicants could now give birth. Now that was a really interesting storyline, and there was going to be an uprising of replicants, essentially leading themselves off into the promised land. The overall story of Blade Runner 2049 was about replicants figuring out what happened to Decker, but Decker's child, basically, which was obviously, from a replicant as well as him. So the story is that now replicants can give birth. They are closer to humanity than they've ever been, and yet still oppressed, etc., etc. And you're going to flash forward 50 years into the future. We're missing a substantial amount of story, and this is where I think that there's some, where the base negativity comes from for this particular series, is that you're going to flash way far ahead in this storyline, and I don't think you're going to be able to do that justice. I don't think that there's going to be enough of a compelling tie between Blade Runner 2049 and this new series. You're either going to have to flash forward and miss a whole bunch of stuff, or you're going to have to flash forward and disregard a whole bunch of stuff. But obviously there are interesting things to go within this world, but I feel like you're going to do that at the detriment of not continuing the story, if that makes any sense. So that's my only negative, is that because it is supposedly set 50 years after Blade Runner 2049, that throws it up into the potential for some story threads not being continued. And I wanted to see that continued. I wanted to see that move forward. I wanted to see what happened. I enjoyed a lot of that film, and what they were setting up was interesting. It was compelling enough. And I do wonder if they're going to continue Jared Leto's character in this series at all, or you're just going to, introduce someone brand new. Because that character could still be, alive. So this will be interesting. But look, I'll hand it on over to you. What do you think? Let me know down below. Love to hear it. Take care.